Hello, everybody, and welcome to Benivo Bites. We are live. People are coming in from all over the world. Hi there from Cara. Hi there from the others I saw coming in from Aaron, from Bangalore, from Ray, from, I'm not sure where you're from, Ray, but great to see you, Ray, from Sumaya. Hello there. People are coming in all over. We've got such an important show. As Mary is saying there, digital transformation is a topic we will surely cover. It's such an important topic. And we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be showing you some case studies today. We wanted to get real on digital transformation. We didn't want to talk about hypotheticals. We're going to show you, in fact, we're doing a two-parter show over this show and the next Benivo Bites show. We're going to show you not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 separate case studies of how people, real companies have used digital transformation to completely transform, to enhance, to improve their global mobility policies and their processes. So we've got a lot there to talk about. But you know how it is, everybody. Join the conversation, write in the comments box and tell us who you are, where you are, ask questions, join in the conversation as we have this conversation all about digital transformation. As I said, it is just such a huge subject. And who'd have thought, 10, 20 years ago that digital transformation was even a word or even a phrase, but now we're really getting into it and it is transforming the way that global mobility runs. So we've got a really exciting time coming up over the next hour. We've also got a changemaker with us. We've got the wonderful Elisabeth Constantin from CGI, who's with us, and she'll be telling us a bit about herself and the charity she supports. And of course, we've got Julia Onslow-Cole, who'll be giving us this week's immigration update. So that's this week. This week, we're talking about digital transformation. What about next week? Well, next week, we've got, again, another really important subject. Next week, we're going to be talking about remote work, fact or fiction. So, there's some people out there who are saying remote work, that's absolutely everything that we've got to do. And, and people are talking about it. There's other companies who are saying, oh, no, we don't like remote work. We're trying to keep away from it. And people are in there in different places in the spectrum. I'm delighted to say we've got next week 2 guests from 2 completely different companies from different ends of the spectrum. We've got Nicole Millman from Wayfair, very much a tech company. And we've got Trish McDonald from Westinghouse, very much not, it's a nuclear plant company. So apart from the fact that both their companies begin with W, they are very distinct industries. So that should be fascinating as we look at it next week. We look at remote work from the viewpoints of 2 very different corporations. Now, I know that many of you like to get your CPE credits, and I'm delighted that we can give you your CPE credits from Worldwide ERC. So thanks to Lynn Shotwell and all the team at ERC, and also your CPE credits. Sorry, you can get those from Sherman HRCI, and many thanks to our friends at Rocket Mortgage who organized those for us. I'll leave this up here for a moment or two. So if you do need CPE credits, then what I suggest you do is just take a screenshot or take a photo of the screen as it is at the moment. I'll leave it up for a few more seconds, and then you've got the credits that you'll need. So as I said, lots to get on with, and we're going to do exactly that. We're going to get on with it, because what we always do at this time is we also talk about breaking news. We talk about what are the things that have been going on in our industry in the last 7 days. So without further ado, let's just find out all the breaking news from around our industry in the last 7 days. So congratulations to everybody who's moved job, to everyone who's been promoted, to everyone at Euro for pulling off what I understand was an absolutely brilliant conference. I saw some of the people who've recently moved. I saw them commenting in the comments box, and I saw a shout out to Peter Farino, who has joined Blick Rothenberg, and also I think Sagar, who's joined Jaguar Land Rover. I think I saw you in the audience as well. If I've missed anybody out in the audience who's recently moved job, then please, take my apologies and many congratulations on your move. Congrats to Stephanie de Los Angeles, who's joined our friends at Air Inc., as Rob has pointed out. And if you've got any industry news you want to share with me, then just message either me or my producer Tally, and we'll try and get you on the show next week or another week to share your news. Anyway, what we're going to do now is going to move on to the next stage of our show, and of course we're going to come on to one of our regulars, which is the wonderful Julia Onslow-Cole, who's going to be giving us this week's immigration update. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's light up LinkedIn and give a really big Benivo welcome to Julia Onslow-Cole from Fragment with this week's immigration update. Julia, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Brian.
Good, great to see you. And you're, I know, at home in Winchester today, I believe.
I am, yes.
But on vacation next week, I gather.
Yes, very exciting. Thank you. I will miss you all.
Well, it's very timed, isn't it? You're going on vacation, and your subject this week, I don't want to sort of jinx it, is travel disruption. How did you even pick that as a subject?
I know. It was actually very depressing reading it all. Yeah. Okay,
so tell us all a little bit about what's going on in the world of global travel disruption and delays. What a fun subject we're covering today.
I know. Sorry about that, everyone. Well, I wanted to say a big thank you to Anna Sophia Walsh, who's my colleague in Europe, for some of the information I'm going to give in a minute about Europe. But we are in this midst of a perfect storm where we're seeing a huge uptick in business travel, a lot of uptick because of the summer holidays, and there's real chaos really across the US and Europe in terms of travel. And as an example, one person who is actually trying to go to Greece, which would be normally a 4-hour trip, it turned into a 24-hour trip. So these issues are being really driven by staff shortages on the airline, the aircraft, ground handling companies, and the whole infrastructure. In Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, on one day last week, a quarter of all flights were cancelled. That's a quarter of all flights. And over Memorial Day holiday weekend, thousands of flights were cancelled in the US.
So just to understand this, because probably like many people, I see my national news. On my national news, I hear about disruption. But what you're saying is this is not a national problem. This is a global problem that everybody is facing.
It's a real global problem. And one of the things was that as the pandemic hit, airlines and all the companies that fed the airlines, they actually made a lot of people redundant, including quite senior people. And now they're having great difficulty recruiting because it's quite a tight global labour market. And also passengers only see the airline that they're travelling with, but airlines are supported by this myriad of underpinning companies, and it's a very complex infrastructure. And so once one part of the supply chain, like say baggage handlers, go down, then it disrupts everything. So on top of that, you've got these individual problems. Like I did explain a couple of weeks ago that in Hong Kong, many airlines weren't even flying to Hong Kong because their staff were having to face these very strict quarantine rules. And so in many of the areas where people want to travel for business, they've cut flights to start with. And then if you put the travel disruption over the top, it's very difficult. And in addition to this travel disruption, COVID has really increase the backlog of government administered and consular applications. If you add that with the Ukraine conflict, which many countries are prioritizing those applications over others, pushing them, which is obviously a good thing, to the front of the queue, it means out of country services where travelers are actually trying to get consular applications or applications, then it makes it very difficult. I see David is saying he's going to drive to his vacation. Well, I want to go to Mykonos. So David, if you'd like to drive me to Mykonos, that'd be really, really good. So really what we're seeing in out-of-country applications, that there's actually months of delay. And as an example, our team in India, which is huge, our consular team, to get appointments for the US, for people going from India to the US, they're getting up in the middle of the night because they're finding that that's the time that most appointments are allocated. Now, in the UK, we're seeing this particularly acute position for out-of-country applications, and that's because we're giving priority to people on the Ukraine visa scheme. Before we started this today, Beth said, "Oh, please say something positive, Julia." So I'm now about to say something very positive.
Oh, right. Good news alert. Yes, good news alert.
Good news alert, which is that China has dropped the travel ban. That's really momentous. I felt really nostalgic when I heard it because I really remembered we were in the thick of the pandemic when it was announced. But they've dropped the travel ban, so you don't need a PU visa invitation letter. So in fact, for China, going to China, it should actually be quicker. And then just looking around Europe, in Portugal, it's very difficult. And if you are a visa national, you are really advised very strongly not to travel outside Portugal until you've completed all your immigration processes. If you are visa exempt, you can travel to the Schengen area, but you shouldn't leave there. In Luxembourg, there's huge backlogs to submit biometrics for foreign nationals with residency cards, and they're taking several months. And in the Netherlands, the delays are actually affecting visa exempt applicants as well, who've got to pick up these resident endorsement stickers at the immigration office before they can start working. And finally, Poland has temporarily suspended expedited processing and also suspending the ability to seek compensation through the courts, obviously because they're overwhelmed with people from Ukraine. And finally, in the UK, there's this enormous backlog still on passports. So really, what is the message? I haven't just really come on to just be a prophet of gloom and doom, but I just wanted to say that the message is really prepare for your trips, for your business trips, and don't leave travellers with only one alternative, and don't leave travellers with just one route and such a short time window that they actually can't take another flight, because we actually are seeing that where we're under a lot of pressure to do something, but there isn't just enough time to push people onto a different route. And I think the other thing is really make sure that your documents are updated. Everyone who's traveling a lot in your companies, make sure their documents are updated. They've got a relatively new passport. In the UK, you can get 2 passports. You know, you can have one for travel to certain countries and one for visas while you get visas. So make sure that that's available to your top travelers, and just, you know, really help them and really warn them, because I think, although, as Brian says, it's quite widespread in the UK and people can see, you know, all the delays at Luton and Gatwick, etc., I don't think people realise that it's a global issue.
Okay, so thank you so much for that, Julia. I mean, you mentioned having 2 passports. I know when we had somebody on talking about footballers, and also we had somebody ages ago talking about motor racing, that they, as a matter of policy, had 2 passports, and they did what they called passport juggling. So one passport could be in with the authorities to get the visa, whilst they could still travel on the other one. So that might be, as you say, a tip. And then my own personal tip, I think, given what I'm seeing with airports and problems with baggage handling as well, is just take hand luggage.
Yes.
Don't check in luggage unless you really have to anywhere you're going.
That's a good tip. That's a good tip, Brian.
Yeah, there's always shops where you go. Anyway, Julia, have a wonderful holiday. And we're now going to move on to our changemaker for the day. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Say a big, big thank you to Julia Onslow-Cole, and a big hello to Elisabeth Constantin as we bring her onto the show. Elisabeth, hi, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thanks so much for having me.
I see we've got at least one of your colleagues in the audience. I saw David Carmichael was there. We might have more, because you're with CGI, aren't you? So tell us a bit about CGI.
Yeah, no pressure now that my boss is watching, apparently.
David, quick.
Yeah, so
turn it off. Go away, David. Tell us the truth, Elisabeth. What's it all like? Tell us about CGI.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the COE lead for global mobility in the US. So I'm responsible for the global mobility strategy of the US as an inbound location for talent that joins CGI US from overseas. And with that, my scope is the strategic direction for immigration, tax, supplier lineup, policy, processes, and excellence in global service delivery.
Okay, and how big a program is it you have at CGI?
Overall, you mean, or like for the US? For the US, we currently have a little bit over 100 active assignees on assignment, and then plus PITs. And
obviously a lot more globally. So I mean, fabulous. And Jennifer saying, "Hi, Elizabeth, great to see you." So I'm sure your friends and family. There you go, David. Careful, Elizabeth. Oh, that's not nice, David.
I know. I wonder if I'll still have a job.
Play there. So anyway, Elizabeth, I'm not hearing an American accent there. So where are you from originally?
Germany, Northern Germany, Hamburg originally, but I've been in the US for 11 years, and in global mobility for coming up on 10.
Okay. And you've worked both sides of the fence, haven't you? You've worked as a relo consultant and in-house, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I originally overseas, I had a career in marketing and retail initially. And when I came here, I continued that for a little bit, but then I kind of fell into the relocation industry because of my international background. So I started at Serva first, relocating Fortune 500 clients, employees around the globe, and then eventually made my way into in-house HR, global mobility, first in manufacturing and now in tech.
Okay. And you're a bit of an entrepreneur on the side too, I gather.
Yeah, that's correct. So I was always the HR person in my friends group, social circle. So eventually, after doing pro bono work in the resume space for years, I eventually opened a boutique resume writing firm for leaders and executives in corporate functions. So wearing more than one hat on the talent lens, so to speak.
Okay, and talking of talent, obviously our change makers, they've got a passion for technology, and you're with a tech company, and I know you've got a great passion for tech, but also they've got a passion for charity, and you support a charity that I think is very dear to the heart of many people in this industry. So tell us about your charity and a bit about what they do.
Yeah, so the charity that I support is Talent Beyond Boundaries. And really, in a nutshell, what they do is they create pathways for skilled refugees to create careers in the locations where they land as a refugee. Because we know that it's not always easy for qualified refugees to find work because of the restraints that they face in their host location because of their refugee status. So I support them, and I think it's a really I know a lot of the people over there, and they do really good work. So I'm proud to support them, but also from a talent lens, creating these kind of pathways simply makes sense because it's it's not just professional growth for those individuals who are coming and giving them an opportunity, but there's also a lot of opportunity for the receiving communities who get more enriched because people mingle and learn a lot more about life and life, work, careers, etc.
It is. It's a great charity, and we all use the phrase talent and mobility, and this really is exactly that. It's just it's refugee talent that is being made mobile.
Yeah, and they are historically very under-leveraged, right? So, and I think especially, so for me, as I've been a mobility practitioner for almost 10 years now, right? And to me, mobility has always been a chosen career path, and it's more than moving people from A to B. It's truly to give people these kind of opportunities. And I would say, and especially in this kind of day and age where we're so divided, across the globe, like politically, across cultures, across societies, I would dare to say that, they really serve a bigger purpose as we do as mobility professionals, because we really create pathways and, for deeper understanding. And I think that's very needed in today's day and age.
Absolutely. Well, Elisabeth, thank you for being on the show. We're going to move on now because we're going to be talking about digital transformation. So everybody, you know how it works. I've told you once, I've told you 100 times, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's give a really, really big thank you to Elisabeth Constantin for being on the show, and also to welcome our guests. We've got Beth Neilson and Pankaj Bhatia, two great technology gurus on the show to be talking to us about digital transformation.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Beth, Pankaj, great to see you both on the show. How are you doing, both?
Hello, thanks for having us.
Cool. And where are you both
Always a
today?
pleasure.
Pankaj, where are you today?
I'm based in Bangalore in India.
Right, and Beth, you're in the UK.
I'm in a very, very hot attic room in my house, but just outside Cambridge in the UK.
Okay, so Beth may be melting as this show goes, although I just thought it must be hotter for you, Pankaj, than it is Beth. So what are you complaining about, Beth? Yeah. But anyway, moving on, I want to talk about digital transformation and removing layers. That's our subject for the day. And I'd like to just maybe involve the audience a bit and just do a bit of context before we get into it. We have got, I said, over the next two shows, we're going to be doing 6 case studies, 3 today and 3 at the next show. But I actually asked the question on LinkedIn, and I'll be interested to see what the audience says. I asked a question on LinkedIn. Do you think you could do more to automate your mobility program through technology? Yes, no answer. Are you doing enough, or is there more you could do to automate your mobility program? And that was the question. If anybody wants to sort of respond and let us know what they think, then please do. But what I would say is that one of the problems that I think that we all have in mobility is that we are too busy. And I think we're too busy being busy. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that we all get stuff coming at left, right, and center. Stuff is coming at us that we got to deal with it. And it's all the urgent stuff. And we're so busy focusing on stuff that's urgent, we never really get around to doing the stuff that's important. And that, I think, is the big challenge, is how do we stop doing the urgent stuff so we can concentrate on the important stuff? The answers are all coming in. I'm pretty much saying yes to that question. I'll just go back to that. Do you think you could do more to automate your mobility program through technology? The actual LinkedIn poll results, and the caveat I always put in with a LinkedIn poll is it's self-selecting. It's not that sensible a poll. It's just whoever responds. But a staggering 95% of people said that they could do more to automate their mobility program through technology. Only 5% thought that there was nothing more that they could do. So that's incredible. 19 out of 20 were saying that that there was more that they could do. And that's what we're going to be coming into. We're going to be talking about. Because again, coming to that issue about the difference between urgent and important, one of the analogies I've sometimes used is that imagine that you're juggling balls in the air, and you've got more and more balls you're juggling in the air. The answer is, how do you keep juggling them when it becomes harder and harder and harder without having some form of nervous breakdown? And the answer is simple: put a few of the balls down and concentrate on the ones that are actually really important. They're the ones you've got to deal with. And one of the ways to do that is through technology, because so much of what we do in mobility is repetitive. Our employees might be putting in the same birth date or social security number or address time and time again to all sorts of different providers. We're not giving ourselves time to focus on stuff with the assignee. There might be, for example, a trailing spouse that's very nervous about moving. There might be an assignee that's worried about what their prospects is going to be on the job. There may be issues with children needing maybe special education or something. All the important stuff gets put to one side sometimes because we're so busy focusing on the really urgent stuff. So that, I think, is part of the theme that I want to get through today. And what we're going to do, as I said, is over the next few weeks, is we're going to be talking about 6 easily implementable wins. And these wins that we're going to be talking about, they are genuine case studies. And every time we can actually tell you the name of the company, we will. And when we can't tell you the name of the company, we will tell you the industry or the sector the company is in, but they're all genuine repeat ones. And some of the things we're going to be talking about over this session are things like automating repetitive work, managing travel reconciliations, booking corporate housing, using data to implement change, managing risks on cybersecurity. So there's a lot to talk about. But let me start with our first case study. And this is a company, in fact, it's already been mentioned today because it's the company where Elisabeth Constantin works. And in fact, I know David Carmichael is in the audience too. And the company is CGI. So Pankaj, tell me a little bit about what CGI did to digitally transform their mobility program. Tell us what the problem was.
Yep, absolutely. So I think just before I go into the problem, just a brief overview in terms of CGI. And I know, of course, Elisabeth did talk about it. So I think, as most folks would know, CGI is amongst the largest IT and business consulting services firm in the world, and again, expanding both organically and through acquisition. Approximately 80,000 employees, which they call members actually. And in terms of the mobility volume, something like 1,500 to 2,000 assignments each year. And of course, that includes new assignments, extensions, end of assignment, etc., etc. Largely project-based travelers, engineers who are traveling all across the world. In terms of the problem which was being faced, which was more around the delivery model, so that was something which was not scalable, especially because of the fluctuating volume. So, basis the business requirements, there were like peaks and troughs in the deployment volume. There were too many layers and handoffs to multiple stakeholders. So again, there were internal teams, external suppliers, and with the external suppliers, there were further sub-supplier networks which were involved. So whole host of, I would say, stakeholders who were involved. The processes again were pretty manual. You talked about the repetitive task, etc. So that's something which was there as well. For example, even things like the employee briefing, that was something which was conducted in a very routine manner, where again same information was being repeated time and again. And I think there were issues in terms of the understanding of the employees and perhaps what was being communicated. So there was always a lot of back and forth which was going on. A specific maybe example that I can talk about in terms of the problem was on a very basic document, which is the assignment letter, right? So that's something which is done for all assignments, even for one-way moves. Typically, you will have some kind of document to support that. So as an example, like I was saying, the letter of assignment was something which was very, very manual. It entailed the team kind of copy pasting some of the data from the templates, putting into a new document, seeing what is relevant for each employee, then copy pasting the relevant portion or removing what was not relevant, based on the policy, based on the benefits which would apply, sending those documents for signature to the manager. And again, that's something which was done through emails, getting it back, sending it back to the employee for signatures, etc. So as you can imagine, again, even for a simple process like assignment letter, there was so much of manual work which was involved and so much of back and forth which was there.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that time and time again. I mean, every company, it talks about these, the number of times people moan at me in the industry about how much time they spend cutting and pasting documents, and I know we're going to come on to that in some of the other case studies as well, or just these manual processes that, could be automated, should be automated, and aren't being automated. But also, I know that also, not only does that lead a bad experience for the assignment manager, it also leads to a really bad experience for the employees themselves.
Absolutely. And again, there's a big chance for errors as well, right? With the process being manual, you can imagine, right? There could be so many errors which can creep as part of the process. So absolutely. A few of the other problems which were there was the status on where you stand with the delivery of services, not everyone knowing where things stand, especially with the vendors. Again, both the mobility management team as well as the employees, they would always want to know where things stand, right? So that was something which was a challenge. At the same time, ensuring, the organization was kind of complying with the duty of care, right? So give the information to members, to make their choices. I think that flexibility was something which was missing. And one of the constraints, of course, that they were working with was around the cost as well. So as you can imagine, with the engineering or project-based companies, right, each dollar that you spend to manage the process or improve the process, I think adds to the cost, and that makes you a little bit more uncompetitive as compared to the other, organizations, etc. as well. So I think that was something which was a kind of a constraint. So I think based on the above, I would perhaps classify the issues into three categories. With the large number of sub-vendors involved, the cybersecurity, because we are passing on the information of the employee and it's going through so many changes, etc. It's kind of passing through so many channels. The risk increases significantly. In terms of the repetitive process, Brian, that you spoke about, right? I think how do you get more efficiencies into the process? How do you automate more and more of that work? And of course, I would say one of the most important thing, if not the most important thing, is on the employee experience, right? I think they are the customers, your internal customers, and I think you want to ensure that they are getting the kind of best experience. So, having a great tech, experience, I think, was very, very key as part of the overall process. So having said
Okay.
that,
So Pankaj, I think we that sort of explains the problem. I want to sort of let's focus in on the solution. So Beth, can you just tell us a bit about how we use technology to transform things?
Yeah, sure. So there were about 28 manual tasks that we were working on with CGI in this case. I'm going to explain how we solved some of them, but they were all solved through a digital first automation experience. And what that led for CGI was hundreds of hours saved, and those repetitive tasks and those manual errors reduced, which reduced costs in this case by over 50%, which is amazing, in addition to improving employee experience. So if you want to bring my screen up, I'll just show you a few of those things that we did. The first one probably is something that everybody has struggled with before it's automated, which is the creation and also the signing of an assignment letter. So as Pankaj was sharing, this was previously a completely manual task. We created a workflow through our assignment management system that created the correct assignment letter every time. We just did it automatically at the click of a button. And what that did is it also not just created it, but sent it to the employee. The employee then can access that through the portal. And you can see here that they have their first item on their action list, which is to sign their assignment letter. I'm just showing you this in the standard demo platform, but obviously this would be available in the relevant company platform. It tells me in very easy, tweet-sized, bite-sized information what to do. And as with all of the digital briefs, designed to be accessed on your phone. So just imagine me scrolling through this on my phone. And the integration with DocuSign means it's not just accessible on my phone, and I can see the important information that I need to know, but equally I can actually sign it on my phone. So I just go onto the DocuSign process, click that I've signed it, and that then gets completed. More so, once you've completed it, it will get marked as complete on my my progress up here, and it would be available under my document section. And that's not just to me, that is equally available to the global mobility team. So that has all happened within one workflow, all from my phone. And there's none of that back and forth of information. The data is just automatically updated, and it is so stress-free, something that saved lots and lots of time. The next one that I wanted to just highlight, which is very similar, is on policy briefs. So the information that was happening during a policy briefing was repeated time and time again. People were shown the same documents, they were shared the same information. And actually that wasn't a good use of the team's time. The team are there to give people that bespoke in-person handheld experience if they need it, but actually repeating the same information is not adding value. It's not getting anything from either side. So what we did is we digitalized this. So you can see all information about the relocation benefits that are available in your digital brief. Your benefits are explained. Equally, on the platform, you can see all those documents that were previously provided directly from the team via email or another unsecure method. So absolutely brilliant that these digital brief approach solves everyone's problems, because everyone gets the same information in the same format at the same time. Similar to signing your assignment letter, we can track who's read that, who has got that information, who's taken that action, who's completed it. So you get that information for everyone to know where someone is in the process. So you can really pick out the people who are struggling, who's not engaging with the process, and that's where you can focus that individual attention. And then finally, probably no need to share the screen for this one, but it's the auto population of forms. So similar to what we've said about the assignment letter, where any information is required on a form, such as a form for the Cigna, so the medical, or for the relocation, or for tax, or for setting up another payroll, where that information was previously on a form that needed to be entered and have the same information entered multiple times, we've just automated it. So the fields are available where they need to be, and available to who needs them, but only to the people that needs them. So really with an eye on that security aspect as well. So
I love that. I know we call that automagic functionality, that it's almost as if by magic you put your piece of information in once and it's everywhere.
Yeah, so I've got a slide that summarizes all of sort of the numbers that I've just
let me just pull that up for you.
Through, but as I said, so a 50% cost saving and an 80%, so hundreds of hours worth of time saved through these 28 manual processes, and all while increasing the employee engagement, the employee experience.
Hang on. We're saying, I just want to make sure I understand these. We're saying 50% cost savings, 80% time saved, and an increase in employee satisfaction of plus 30%.
Exactly. And
as Jen has said here, technology works. I've lost it. Technology works best when it frees up people who do the things people like doing, like managing relationships with stakeholders. Couldn't agree more, Jen. Let's take the repetitive stuff and use technology for it and focus on the stuff that's just so much more important.
So we do, as you know, we offer free APIs with any of the HRIS, so SuccessFactors, Workday, to make sure that information, if it's available, can be pulled across. So anywhere that you have the information, we will do our best through our Automagic, through RPA, through APIs, to pull that information across, because we don't think that people should be doing this information. We think that they should, as Jen was saying, sort of offer that in-person duty of care experience.
Cool. Okay, well, that's really, really helpful. Let's just take that off screen for the moment.
Sure.
And so we're going to move now on to our second case study. And this, we can't tell you the name of this company, but what we can tell you is it's big. Okay, it's one of the big global investment banks. And their particular problem, I think, was all the question of reconciliations for travel expenses, which I suspect many global mobility professionals out there in the audience will be going, yeah, I know your pain. I understand what the issue is. But Pankaj, tell us a bit about the organization, obviously without giving away who they are, but also more importantly, telling us a bit about the problems that they were facing.
Right. So Brian, like you mentioned, it's an organization in the financial sector, very big. Have all kinds of mobility, which is there. Got long-term, short-term assignments, etc., which are there. So even though they are in the financial sector, the problem it actually relates to something relating to finance that we will talk about. So the issue that was being faced.
I think that makes an interesting point, doesn't it, Pankaj? That even some of the largest companies in the world can struggle with not simple but things like travel. So it's not, if you're struggling with it in your company, I suppose what I'm saying is you're in good company, because lots of people are struggling with the same problem. So tell us a bit about the problem. I know it's to do with travel expenses for relocation.
Right. So certainly it relates to the travel expenses relating to relocation. So basically the problem over there was in terms of the availability of the corporate card. So this particular organization actually has a travel management system, travel booking system. And when the employees book the travel, they actually use corporate cards to make the payment. And the issue specifically arises with respect to some of the new hires, because they have a lot of new hires as well at different levels, as well as some of the existing employees who do not have corporate cards. So especially, Brian, you can imagine if there's a new hire who is kind of coming into the company, and again, the travel, etc., would need to be booked well in advance, right? Especially if they're relocating, right? If they've not been onboarded into the company system, they will not have the corporate cards. So the employee could still maybe use their personal credit cards to make those payments, but the challenge then arises is in terms of the reporting that comes with it, and especially when you're talking about relocation expenses for certain countries, for example, even US, I think with the changes in the tax law, some of those relocation expenses are taxable. So the complication arises.
It's also a big ask for the employee, isn't it? If they're having to pay for big relocation expenses on their personal credit card, when they may well be maxed out anyway.
Absolutely, and these are big expenses, like you said, right? So the employees could use their cards, but like I said, I think the reporting timing would be the challenge. So what?
And as Joy has said, Pankaj, Dr. Joy Hill here from Brown Forman. She said business expenses taxable differently from relocation, which I think is exactly the issue. Yeah,
absolutely, right. So they were actually the
exactly.
solution that what they came out was that in case of the employees who wanted to travel and who are not able to use their personal credit cards, they were using the corporate cards of their manager. So again, imagine a situation where a manager is there and he has maybe 2 or 3 people who are being hired, including existing employees who do not have a corporate card. Ultimately, there'll be like 2 or 3 or 4 bookings which will be appearing in his or her name. And then if simultaneously the person is booking their own business travel, right? I think that makes the things even more complicated. How do you track all those expenses? How do you identify what travel expenses relate to which particular employee, whether it relates to business travel or relocation travel? And like Dr. Joy mentioned, right? I think the taxability differs as well. So with all these kind of complications, trying to reconcile the data, identifying what relates to which employee, created a lot of specific problems which were there.
And I think that this is a real nightmare, isn't it? I can see everybody putting their heads in their hands and say, "Oh my God!" I feel the pain because you've got muddled expenses, business travel and relocation, different employees having their expenses on somebody else's accounts, and I know they were spending hours and hours and hours doing boring reconciliations to try and work it out. But the good news is that we do have a solution. So we're going to share this solution now, and I think actually I'd like to think we're the only people out there that actually have this solution. So I think this is a bit of a first. So Beth, why don't you tell us about the solution?
Yeah. So the solution is available just because of the way Benivo works. We're able to issue those employees with virtual cards or expense payment cards that they can then use in their existing travel system. So that means that they have a card. I've got one here as well, but it doesn't have to actually be, it can be physical as well. But it's got numbers on it that they can input into their usual travel system, which means that they are not going outside of the standard policy. So it makes it nice and easy to use. Equally, because it's a Benivo issue card, we can do automatic invoicing, we can do automatic payroll rules, tax rules, and completely automate the process end to end, which is just a huge relief. And it's something that I've obviously heard from the case study that we're talking about today, but from multiple other people that I've spoken to. This is a real issue. We already had, or we have the alternative solution, which is using our expense management tool, which obviously is available before people are on payroll, so you can automatically reimburse people in real time. But we're aware that most people, or there might not be an appetite for using that. And there's also the ability to, there might be the expectation that they have to use their company expense process. So okay, this is
if I can just
another way.
We'll come on to that in a moment. But I just want to pick up a comment that Joy came in with, because Joy said, I love hearing the solution for this. So we're seeing this even more so with Russian employees now. And then she said, yes, she's obviously doing this with Benivo, and obviously
yeah,
Joy.
I'm very proud. Joy's one of our fantastic changemakers.
Lovely to work with you, Joy. But Beth, I don't know if you can say anything about how it can help people coming from difficult locations, like people coming out of Russia or Ukraine.
Of course. I mean, this is in respect of an issue that is huge for reporting and was taking a huge amount of time to reconcile. So this particular company, I think they had an actual person, and their entire role was trying to pick this out, because if you get that compliance wrong, you're not compliant. And with the numbers that they had relocating and the costs of travel, that was a huge risk. But when we're talking from a more practical perspective, if people can't access their own funds, then the card can equally produce or provide a solution. So it means that as soon as someone is outside of a sanctioned area, so I just will stress that we're not breaking any sanctions or violating any sanctions, but as soon as someone is outside of a sanctioned area, they are then able to access funds delivered onto a virtual card Those virtual cards are so flexible; they can be uploaded and linked to your Apple Pay, your Google Pay, and you can use them just like anyone else would, just like a normal card.
And I know what you showed was an actual card, but that can be a virtual card as well.
Exactly.
You just happen to have it in actual. I also noticed that's Visa backed, so I mean it's so it's this is not Mickey Mouse. This is very, very well regarded technology, and there's also, you mentioned the expense management system that goes with it.
Yeah, precisely. So there are two ways of managing this. So there's lots of flexibility within Benivo that we have to manage different populations and manage those solutions that work best for the corporate. We are very, very aware that many corporates have a dedicated travel provider that they have to use. So we are flexible in finding a way to do that whilst also delivering the reporting. And that's the key thing. It's all about getting that data without having to do it manually, and getting that data in real time and accurately as well, not with a delay.
Okay, so let's move on to our third case study. And this is another major, all three of these companies we've been talking about today are major companies in their sectors. And this is a major household name tech company. And their problem, or the problem that the case study we're going to show, was all about booking temp housing and the problems that's there. And I know that this is an issue that I've seen a lot about. I know that we work with Alta Vita on an integration there. But for many people, when it comes to booking temp housing, it can be an incredibly slow and frustrating process that, you're going down your supply chain, you're trying to move somebody to some destination, you're then sort of going down, the RMC is going down their supply chain, they're getting PDFs back, they get cut and pasted, people spend hours doing the cutting and pasting, they send a PDF, they send a document back, you then go through the ones that you like, you don't like, you then go back, by which time they weren't real time anyway, it might be too late to book it. Which is not like what the world is like in the real world. In the real world, as an individual, you go on to booking.com or Expedia or Airbnb or something and just book live. And that's what employees expect. And for companies, especially, I suppose, tech companies, their employees expect a much better experience. So Pankaj, tell us a bit about the problem quickly about the problem this company was facing. Then let's move on and spend most of the time talking about the solution.
Sure, Brian. I think you've largely kind of laid out the problem was around the temporary accommodation, which would, of course, arise in all circumstances when an employee is relocating. The employee would provide the budgets, which would be decided by the company, go to the consultant, the relocation consultant. The relocation consultant will come back with options based on the budgets, with the pictures, etc. Goes back and forth a little bit. You can imagine with the time differences, especially if you're working in different time zones, you lose out on a lot of time. And with that, certain properties have very limited availability, right? And so you may end up not getting the accommodation that you want, right? So that, I would say, is one. And second thing, more importantly, is around the data security, right? I think we've always at Benivo mentioned how critical that is, how much of a risk it creates for the organization across, right? With the data kind of being sent across through emails, etc., back and forth so many times through multiple channels, it creates a huge risk. So those were the kind of key issues that were kind of being faced.
Okay, so let's move on. We've only got 5 minutes or 7 minutes left. So I'd like to talk about what we've done as a solution, Beth, because I suppose I'm a bit biased because I actually do have a small stake in Alta Vita personally, but we fully integrated them into the Benivo platform. And it's some pretty cool technology. So tell us a bit about it, Beth.
So as we said, the Alta Vita integration or integration with a travel solution means that cybersecurity risk is already dealt with from the first. So you're able to make sure that information is not just shared with the end accommodation provider. You can protect what's shared. You can track what's shared. You're protecting that employee from the first. So that's from the employee perspective. Equally, from a corporate's perspective, you can make sure that your employees, are getting to see the properties that are relevant to you as a corporate. So are they seeing the ones in the right locations? Are they seeing the ones with the right budget? Are they seeing the ones that are of the right standard? And within our integration, and do feel free to share the screen because this looks very pretty, I think, it's nice that an employee can go in and you can see the integration, so it's all branded with Benivo also, but they can go in and see things that are available to them now. So I've currently got this up as showing accommodation that's available in Boston, but equally it could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I know Altavita have got over 1 million properties globally. So let me just pick another location. I mean, that's somewhere in the US, that's Boston. Yeah, let's go for Amsterdam, because I know FEM were there the other week. So,
okay.
So let's have a look at Amsterdam.
Certainly. So the first thing that comes up, and I won't spend too long on this, but is the ability to have set a budget for that location. And the important thing there is you're giving control to the corporate. There we go. And you can see locations that are available, accommodation that is available now. So the individual is able to see photos of that location and also request to book that location all through the platform. So this is a real game changer when we're talking about a time saving, because you've already got that needs assessment. You're able to make the data accessible directly to the consultant who's supporting that, and then directly browse and book options through the integrated booking engine, just like everyone knows how to do. So it's just taking that real world technology that we all expect to be available and putting it into the Benivo platform. So again, saving significant amounts of time, removing that frustration when there's those time delays from an accommodation that you want to be available and book, and then by the time the time zones and everything else happens, it's not available. So what we're currently showing here is temporary accommodation, but it is just something that moves very quickly, obviously.
Okay, so that's really exciting. What I'm going to do actually is, as we've got Elisabeth with us, let me just bring Elisabeth back onto stage. Our changemaker. Now, Elisabeth, we did a CGI case study, and you were sitting backstage, which so anyway. I mean, hopefully we got it roughly right when we were talking about what you guys do, and how have you found the technology?
No, I mean, it was fabulous to just take a moment and step back and reflect on the work that we have done, and also the great work that you are doing for other clients. I'm not really surprised, definitely all the points that you guys, that Beth and Pankaj have highlighted are very, very true about, the benefits that we have had as a company. And I would just like to close with the fact that I think we've been a client now for almost 3 years, and we continue to be surprised and impressed with Benivo's ability to provide tech solutions for client needs, especially the assignment letters that you mentioned. I mean, it's been such a mundane task that automating that is really freeing up time for our teams, for example. And then there's a lot of other things that we do as a client. So bottom line is, as someone who has worked across both aisles of the industry, I haven't always, as a client, experienced this kind of ability to adapt and provide tech solutions to make our lives easier. And it's certainly something that we value a lot in our partnership, and that we can very happily advocate for. So thank you so much.
Well, and thank you. And there's a comment here just coming from Lucas. Maybe I'll just pull that on screen too. He said, do you also have remote, this is talking about the property solution. He said, do you also have remote locations other than just big cities, e.g. a small town in Alabama where our factory is based? And the answer to that, Lucas, is that we have over 1 million properties on the site at the moment. The aim is to get to 2 million within a year. But what happens when a new company is brought on board is we look at all the locations. Most locations we will have stuff, but if there's locations where either we don't or where there's not sufficient, then we will get them. We undertake to get them on within a couple of weeks before we go live. So the answer to the question is absolutely yes. I mean, clearly there's more in bigger locations than smaller locations, but we will absolutely get those up there. And I have actually done live demos where the client has suggested some remote location, thinking we would have nothing, and in fact we ended up with about 10 choices in those locations.
Yeah, I would say that's part of the implementation process through Benivo, is to make sure that is the case, that we have the support for the locations that you need.
And I can attest to that as a client, because we have a client proximity model where we're not just in the big cities where the big tech hubs are. We are in a lot of mid-sized, small town locations as well. And we have implemented a lot of solutions for those regions as a client. So yeah, I can absolutely support that.
Thanks, Elisabeth.
Yep. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time. Let me just bring Julia back onto stage. Julia, good to see you as ever, and wishing you a happy holiday. We're now all out of time, so all that remains is to say goodbye to everybody in the audience. We will be back next week when we're going to be talking about remote working with Nicole Millman from Wayfair and Trish McDonald from Westinghouse. So we're having a bit of a W session next week. So thank you all. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all again this time next week. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.